I got blisters on my fingers. Name that song? Okay, BFOD squad. Back together. Welcome to another episode, Barrel Full of Daryl. This is season 1, episode 36, by the way, in case you're counting. I'm Daryl, and my thing on this show is to discuss music, movies, and some other middling drivel. But sometimes I feel like Snoop D-O-double-G. They keep coming up with this funky ass shit nearly every day. So I was talking to my daughter Megan last week, and you may recall that I discussed the film Fargo. And she reminded me of the title card for the movie, which says, "This is a true story. The events depicted in this film took place in Minnesota in 1987. At the request of the survivors, the names have been changed. Out of respect for the dead, the rest has been told exactly as it occurred." So I'll go ahead and tell you it's not a true story, but it is true that it is a story. I think the Coen brothers did this to set the tone for the movie and to perhaps blur fiction and reality. Although the year before the movie came out, or maybe a couple of years before, there was a woman named Helen Crafts, and she was killed by her husband, who proceeded to cut her up with a chainsaw and feed her into a wood chipper. So that may have been some inspiration for the movie. Kinsey raised the question, is it legal for them to do that? Well, my only response is apparently so. Okay, let's talk about some music today. Music. Have you heard the name, or do you know of Harry Belafonte? I hear you. Who the fuck is Harry Belafonte? Well, I'll tell you because you need to know, and it's what I do. Now, he was a famous calypso singer born in New York City in 1927, and he died in New York City in 2023. I've done the math, and he was 96 years old. What a nice long life. He was of Jamaican descent and came to be known as the King of Calypso. If you've ever watched the movie Beetlejuice, then you've heard at least 2 of his songs. The first being Day-O, or the Banana Boat song, and the second is Jump in the Line, Shake Sonora. 2 classic songs for 2 classic movie scenes. But he also sang blues, folk, gospel, show tunes, and American standards. Over the course of his career, he released 27 studio albums and 6 live albums. Also, he was an actor, and he played in about 15 films, the last being Black Klansman in 2018, as well as numerous TV shows and Broadway shows. He was also one of the few performers to have received an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, the coveted EGOT. He was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2018 as an early influencer. Now, at the start of his career, he was a club singer, and the first time he appeared in front of an audience, he was backed by the Charlie Parker Band, which included Charlie Parker, Max Roach, and Miles Davis. Holy shit. what a backing band to have, you know. And even if you guys don't recognize those names, well, there still may be hope for you. So in 1953, he signed a record deal with RCA Victor, and he stayed with them for 20 years. In 1956, he released the album Calypso, which launched him into fame. Now, this album contains the hits Day-O and Jamaica Farewell. And it was the first LP, the first long play album to sell 1 million copies. And it stayed number one on the Billboard pop charts for 31 weeks. As a matter of fact, this album is number 4 on Billboard's top 100 albums because it was number 1 for 31 weeks. And it was in the top 10 for 58 weeks, 99 weeks on the album charts. Wow. It's been called an album of inestimable influence. The album introduced Americans to calypso music, which had originated in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, 2 live albums, both recorded at Carnegie Hall, were released in 1959 and 1960. The first one contains a cover of Hava Nagila, which became one of his signature songs. In 1961, he was one of the entertainers selected by Frank Sinatra to perform at the inaugural gala for President John F. Kennedy. And during the 1960s, he appeared on numerous TV specials. And in 1968, he guest hosted The Tonight Show, substituting for Johnny Carson. And his guests were Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. Now, with the British invasion starting in the 1960s, which included the Beatles, Harry's popularity began to decline. But he continued to record and stayed active. In 1978, he appeared as a guest star on The Muppet Show and performed Day-O. I have yet to see that, but I intend to watch it. Now, in 1984, now this is big, Harry enlisted Lionel Richie, Kenny Rogers, Quincy Jones, and Michael Jackson, and they produced and recorded the song We Are the World, with proceeds to benefit African famine relief. In case you don't know, this song was a huge hit, with dozens of musical artists pitching in. Pretty good music video too, but God, I got so tired of hearing it constantly. It's like every other song on the radio was We Are the World. But it is an impressive display of talent and giving. So Google it and give it a watch if you like to. Harry was also a humanitarian as well as a political activist, but I won't delve into that here. But man, what a life and career, and such an impact on numerous aspects of life, mostly music. So please enjoy the songs that I've placed on the playlist. I think you'll like them. They're fun. So I want to try something new with you guys. During my recent visit to Bremerton, Kenzie and I were sitting around shooting the shit about mostly music. Megan was making delicious cheddar jalapeno dip. At some point, Kenzie said, we should be recording this. So I brought out the microphones and we recorded our convo for about 1.5 hours. Now, I've added a snippet of this convo and would like to get your feedback on it. If you like it, I'll add more snippets in upcoming episodes. And the name of this new segment is Just Roll Tape. And here it is. Enjoy. All right. Sitting here with Kenzie.
Hello, hello. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Bring it on.
Sorry if I just yelled in your mic.
Buffalo chicken dip on the way.
We're recording a conversation.
Yeah. It's okay. We're just letting tape roll. Oh, so where were we?
We had talked about
Chris
Christopherson. We looked up guitar pull party.
Guitar pull party, cause
A pull party, not a pull.
Pull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As in like dancing.
Guitar pull party.
Yeah.
And I read that it is a Southern thing where a bunch of artists get together and they take turns one at a time playing a guitar song and singing to it. And Johnny Cash had invited Chris Christopherson to one of those. But I think that was after the helicopter thing.
Well, it sounds like that's where he made his big introduction, which is a wild story. You probably should.
And yeah, for those just now tuning in, because we just now started recording this, Kenzie and I have had like a 1 hour conversation on music and artists and stuff. And one group that Kenzie mentioned was a super group called Highwaymen, which included Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Chris Christopherson made that big an impact on his own, but he wrote so many songs that have been covered by so many people.
Yeah.
Like Me and Bobby McGee.
That was his song?
That was his song.
Damn.
Help Me Make It Through the Night. What else? Let me see.
The reason I know about him is the Highwayman. And I figured he's in such good company, he must be somebody special.
He is. He was one of the original country outlaws.
Also, what a great moniker to be part of the outlaw. That group is legendary.
No doubt.
Not that it's an official group, but I mean that group of people.
I mean, they're all legends.
Yeah.
And Chris Christopherson, I was telling Kenzie that thank you, Megan. Yum.
You know, on second thought, crunching on a bunch of chips is probably not what the listeners want to hear.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Moo.
There's tortilla chips.
Thank you, my love.
Little apron and everything. Love it.
Little country rebel kitchen.
I was telling Kenzie earlier that Chris Christopherson is he's an intelligent guy. He got a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford University, and that's Rhodes, Rhodes, Rhodes Scholarship. So he was, I mean, that's an honor right there. He was also in the Army. He was a helicopter pilot. And how he became musically famous was he'd made a demo tape, and I guess he rented a helicopter or something, and he flew the helicopter into Johnny Cash's backyard and walked out and went up to the door and handed him the demo tape. So, and there was a song on there, Sunday Morning Coming Down, which Johnny Cash recorded, and he also sang it at the Grand Ole Opry, and Chris Christopherson was in the audience at the time.
What a baller move.
He had big balls, you know?
I can't believe I've never heard that story. That's so cool.
He was committed to getting his work out there.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a thing that could have only happened back in the day. Like, I mean, to even find out where does Johnny Cash live? You know, have you ever seen that video where there's some like dirty hippies and they show up to John Lennon's house, and it might have just been captured like on somebody's handheld, or it must have been at the time. These just random hippies show up to John Lennon's house and they're like, "Hey, I want to have a conversation with John Lennon," and he's so gracious that he welcomes them in. They have dinner together, and they just shoot the shit. Just a bunch
You
of
saw that in a video?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. John Lennon talks to dirty hippies or something like that. But yeah, you'd think like that kind of thing would never happen nowadays.
And now a word from our sponsor. Be right back.
Howdy, y'all. This is Chrissy Mae Parlay chatting at you again from Scratch Ankle, Alabama. I wanted you to know that my business picked up a bit after my last message to you Barrel Full of Darrow listeners, and I want to thank you for that. But one of my new customers turned out to be an undercover cop from Monroeville, dagnabbit. So I've started a GoFundMe page to help with legal fees, and I would appreciate any donations from any of you. Now, this was just a little speed bump in my business, and I am still out here rolling around. So if you visit Scratch Ankle, please give me a call. You can find my number in the second stall of the men's or the ladies' restroom in the Piggly Wiggly here on Main Street. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
And we're back. Movie. Ooh. I've already said the name. Beetlejuice. This is one fun, whacked out movie. And again, one of my favorites. Its genre is gothic, dark, fantasy, comedy, horror. Yeah, it's quite a mix of genres, but it does hit on all of them. It was released in 1988 and directed by Tim Burton. If you're not aware, Tim Burton is a great director with a lengthy resume of films. His directorial debut was the movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure, also one of my favorites. His films are typically gothic horror and dark fantasy, and the scenery is always eye-popping. So on to Beetlejuice. This film stars Michael Keaton, sorry about that, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Jeffrey Jones, Catherine O'Hara, and Winona Ryder. Now, Alec and Gina, they play a young married couple that live in a large country home, which they are being pressured to sell by a real estate agent, but they constantly refuse. One day after a shopping trip to town, their car plunges off of a bridge and they both drown. Well, they end up back in their home but can't recall how they got there. And when they try to leave the house, they fall into a desert landscape occupied by giant sandworms. So back in the house, they find a book titled Handbook for the Recently Deceased, and they realize that they died in the river and they are ghosts. Now, the house gets sold to an eclectic New York couple, played by Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara, who have a goth daughter, played by Winona Ryder. So the family begins renovating the house with very odd postmodern art style, and the ghosts are basically appalled. Now, in the handbook for the dead, they discover an advertisement for Beetlejuice, a bioexorcist played by Michael Keaton, who can be summoned by chanting his name 3 times. But these ghosts, they have an agent of the dead, tells them not to use Beetlejuice and to haunt the family out themselves. Now, the ghosts are invisible to the husband and wife, but their daughter can see them and can talk to them, and they develop a relationship. But after failed attempts at haunting out the family, the ghosts finally decide to summon Beetlejuice. Again, Michael Keaton played the part. And oh my God, what a character. Keaton really knocked it out of the park playing Beetlejuice. You really have to see this guy, perhaps by watching the movie, yeah? In one word, the makeup, costume, and portrayal are all just outrageous. Funny as hell, too. So Beetlejuice begins to haunt the family. One great scene is they're all having dinner with guests when Beetlejuice makes them all start singing Deo and then dance around the table. But this backfires because the family and guests, they all love it. They're intrigued. So they hold a seance to summon back the ghost using their wedding clothes. Well, it works, and the ghosts materialize into the clothes, but they quickly begin to decay and fall to pieces, basically. Ashes to ashes. So the people had used the wrong spell and picked the one for exorcism. So the daughter is appalled by this, and she summons Beetlejuice again. But she has to promise to marry him, which would allow him to stay in the mortal world. And during the wedding reception, the ghosts attempt to banish Beetlejuice, but he basically banishes them out into the desert. And they ride a sandworm back into the house, and the worm devours Beetlejuice. Now, the family and the ghosts decide to live together harmoniously, and they basically live happily ever after. And in the final scene, they're all dancing to the song Jump in the Line, and it's very cool. Okay, so as usual, I've only touched the tip of the iceberg here. Now, this movie, the sets and the scenery are fantastical and eye-popping, as with many of Tim Burton's films, and the wardrobes as well. By the way, it won an Oscar for Best Makeup. Now, this is a very funny and engaging film, and 4 out of 5 Daryls recommend it. So please find it somewhere and enjoy. I know you will. Word of the week. Run. R-U-N. What a simple word, right? But for the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, the word has 645 different meanings. 645. I'm not going to recite them all to you, mostly because I don't have a copy of the OED. I don't have a room big enough. But here are a few examples. Your feet run, a river runs, cars run on gas, a politician runs for office, etc., etc. Joke of the week. The nudist colony filed a complaint that someone had been drilling holes through their privacy fence. Well, the police are looking into it. Question of the week. Okay, from last week I asked, has Earth ever had only one continent? And the answer is yes, Pangea. A supercontinent formed 335 million years ago, and it began to break apart 200 million years ago. And it's believed there were previous supercontinents before Pangea, but Pangea has been reconstructed from geological records, and it is the most understood. So if you want to know more about it, use Uncle Google, especially if you have insomnia. New question of the week. I'm going to guess that most of my listeners, it's not really a guess, most of my listeners are in North America, some in South America. But I'm going to guess that most of you have or you only use one word for snow, at least in the English language, American English language. But which language has the most definitions for snow? Here's a hint. It ain't the Eskimos. Thought of the week. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving is not for you. Don't forget about the playlist that I've got set up accompany this podcast, and I always drop songs on there, and I hope you enjoy them. You may contact me by clicking on send me a text button in the episode, or directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget that the podcast episodes have an option to support my show. This is a feature that allows you to send me a little spare change each month. The amounts differ, $3 to $10 per month. So with your donation, I could buy anything from a jug of windshield wiper fluid or a 6-pack of beer at the gas station. So thank you for listening. I thoroughly hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.